Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. My name is Ned Holmes and this is The Debate Show. Today I'm joined by my Football League World colleague Billy Mulley to discuss whether Kolo Toure'S Wigan Athletic side are destined for the drop in the Championship this season. How are you doing this morning, Billy?
Yeah, doing well, thank you. A good topic up for discussion today. We've now seen a fair few games under the Kolo Toure reign. It's going to be interesting to see what happens in January and what remains of the season.
Yeah, as you say, we're sort of a month or so into Kolo Toure's, 2 months rather, into Kolo Toure's reign at the moment. And at the moment, the Championship table doesn't make particularly pretty viewing for Latics fans, but we'll get stuck into, as you say, that tough start and how the season's looking moving forward. But before we do get started, just a reminder, as always, please do like and share this video, subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube, and let us know your thoughts in the comments as well. As I said, Billy, the Championship table makes difficult viewing for Latics fans right now as they sit rock bottom. We're going to move on to talk about that sort of thing in just a minute. But before we do, it's important to talk about that change in the dugout. Liam Richardson led Wigan to promotion last season, of course, but was sacked in November after a run of 7 games without a win. Some people question the timing, given he just signed a 3-year deal 2 weeks before. Kolo Toure comes in and his replacement, fair to say, a bit of a risk given his lack of experience in sort of the big job. What did you make of that?
Yeah, just echoing what you said, really, with Richardson. I think in line with the rest of the Wigan fan base, it was a little bit surprising in terms of the timing of it all. Richardson, of course, led Wigan to promotion against the odds in a kind of way. Sort of the League One big hitters managed to secure top place and everything looking good going into the new campaign. I think within the Wigan fan base, I think there's questions as to whether they could have strengthened more during the summer. Of course, made a couple of good additions, but I think ultimately coming into the Championship and how competitive it is now, adding that little bit more Championship experience was desired by more Wigan fans. But then, of course, that decision happens. You've got to respond quickly. They bring in Kolo Toure, and I think the potential for what he can go on to achieve in his managerial career is really high. But ultimately, he's a manager with no experience in the Championship, so it does represent that kind of risk. Of course, they did have at the time a large chunk of the season left to play, which I think is something that will bode well and help him settle down a little bit. We haven't really seen that new manager bounce that we do speak of quite a bit in the EFL. But ultimately, I think things, and I'm sure we'll go on to it, especially the last fixture, things looked a lot better. Of course, the previous fixtures before that it was a real baptism of fire, really, into the new role and difficulties arising. But I think there's definitely room for optimism, especially during the January transfer window and especially after what we've just seen in the last fixture.
Yeah, Kolo Toure as a replacement, Billy, obviously most people will remember him for his time, as a defender with sort of Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, Celtic, quite a popular character, a big character, but important to remember certainly that, he's sort of earned those coaching stripes as a trusted member of Brendan Rodgers' coaching sort of set up for a few years now. Had that success at Celtic, of course, and helped in the success at Leicester City. As you say, it's clear that he deserves a bit of time as a young manager that's come in. He's not had that new manager bounce that obviously Wigan fans will have been hoping for. But important to remember, he sort of inherited a squad that were pretty bereft of form as well. You've touched upon that start. I mean, 1 point from 5 games in the Championship is not a great start. Obviously, the manner of the defeats, in terms of those last 3 coming as 4-1 defeats and 4 losses on the bounce. But Toure himself has spoken about the need for that one win, a bit of momentum. That FA Cup performance and result of obviously a 1-1 draw with Luton, earning that replay. how important was that as a performance to really show that they are moving in the right direction?
I think it was really important. Of course, what we've seen so far is sort of disappointing results. It's sort of followed on from the sort of Liam Richardson reign, and they had that sort of month break that, I don't know, some teams have used it well, some teams have found it difficult. So, of course, Wigan are on that second side of things. But I think what they'll take away from that game at Luton is that, they can mix it up. They can have spells in the game where they're sort of backs against the wall and they can defend and show resilience. But they've also got that sort of attacking power. Of course, I think they do need to improve on that during this month. But the likes of Callum Lang bringing the ball forward, there's not too many better in the division. He's a really, really exciting player when he's on the ball. He's somebody that can make things happen. And even during times of difficulty, he's positive in his approach. He's a direct runner. He's certainly somebody that can continue to cause problems. And I think that's what we're needing to see. We need sort of to see that kind of balance in play where they can show their resilience, but they're also show a sort of deadly side going forward. You've got the likes of Tello Asgard that's, every time I see him, he's brilliant. And I don't understand why he doesn't start every week. But then again, I don't watch Wigan games every week, so it's quite hard to really gauge that. But ultimately, he's a player that can change games. And I think they've got a few of those in the team. And that's something that they'll, of course, need to add to. I think, as sort of mentioned there, January is a very, very big month for them. We'll go on to that, I'm sure, to speak about individual rumours and signings. But there is, in my eyes, a lot of scope for things to go right. And Kolo Touré, a new manager, as much as, the first few results haven't gone his way, what we've seen is new managers have a fair bit of success. You look at Mick Bill at QPR, you look at John Eustace at Birmingham. And I guess the good thing for Wigan going into this period now is that it's not the whole ripping up of the playbook from the Liam Richardson era to this new Kolo Touré era. It's keeping a fair few things the same, but it's just building on what they've got. I think they've got a solid enough foundation, and it's just about adding in January to really strengthen the squad. And should they get the targets they've been rumoured with, then I'm sure they'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Billy, obviously that new manager bounce is something that a lot of that we've sort of become used to seeing when a team sacks their manager, brings in a new coach. As we've said a couple of times, that Latics haven't had that this season. But do you think that's in part because Touré's sort of tried to sort of change the style, implement a bit more of an expansive sort of possession play, sort of building it from the back approach, and that was only naturally going to bring its own teething problems?
It's an interesting one because if you look stylistically, there are similarities to how Richardson approached things and how Touré's approached things. I think they were a little bit more expansive in their defeats, so that's something that Touré's probably addressed. And when they came to Luton, they were a lot more defensive. They were deeper, but they counter-attacked with purpose and with real intelligence. So I think that's something that he'll take in and consider going into the rest of the season. It's quite hard assessing those 4-1 defeats because you look at the Middlesbrough one. Middlesbrough are a very good side, finding form at the right time, but then against Sunderland and Hull, those were the two more disappointing ones where they've probably tried to be a little bit more expansive than before. So it's just getting that balance, and it's not changing everything very, very quickly. He's still got a group of players that I think benefit from playing a system that is probably a little bit more defensive at the moment. But I think, as we've mentioned before a couple of times, this January transfer window is a real good opportunity to bring players in that can benefit a number of different systems, so that you can be flexible with that. Because I think at the moment he's probably seeing the squad and just operating in a single way to get the best out of his squad. But ultimately, there are players out there that will allow Kolo Touré to implement a different system or implement fresh ideas. And I think that's the kind of balance that he's thinking about at the moment, and that's what he's going to be trying to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I think worth remembering, of all the benefits and the positives that do come with sort of appointing a new fresh coach with fresh ideas, someone like Toure is still learning that big job, and perhaps we've seen that with his change of approach from, as you say, the more expansive style in those 4-1 defeats to sort of accepting that perhaps that they're going to have to be a bit more pragmatic and taking that approach against Luton. We'll move on, Billy, to the January transfer window then. The initial sort of suggestions from the rumours and speculation are that it's going to be a busy one for the Latics, and I guess, Billy, you'd suggest what we've seen so far, certainly statistics wise, shows that they need to strengthen sort of across the pitch. You look at they've got the worst defence in the division, having conceded 46 goals already, and have scored the 4th fewest. We'll touch on some individual sort of rumours in a second, but just how important is it that Kolo Touré gets that backing this month, particularly as perhaps we maybe expected Liam Richardson to get a bit more backing than he did in the summer, and there's an argument to be made that Touré is dealing with a squad that's perhaps a bit more League One quality than Championship. So just how important do you think it is that he really is back this month?
Yeah, it's massive, but I also think there has to be an element of balance with it. You don't want to have a situation like Hull in the summer where you add so many fresh faces that it's difficult to really get going and for individuals to settle and get into the system. I think we're only really seeing the best of Hull at the moment, and that's a while on since the summer. So I think it's massive for Kolo Touré to get the right individuals in, but also avoid adding too many players to sort of disrupt the flow of the players that will continue to play each week. As you said, squad quality can improve, but they do have several players of Championship level quality that beyond this transfer window should be playing week in, week out. And I think that's going to be the main message of this transfer window. Add, but don't add too much and disrupt that flow, because of course what we've seen is it can take teams a while to adapt. And, if you take a while to adapt after the January transfer window, you're sort of shooting yourself in the foot, especially with relegation being a possibility this season. So yeah, with the Championship as close as it is, it's about, staying put at the moment, not cutting yourself adrift by adding too many players and disrupting that flow, as I mentioned there, but also, it's knowing that they do need to add in certain areas. They do need to add across the pitch. It's just seeing which individuals have that sort of versatility to be able to operate in different systems and systems that Kolo Touré wants to implement. But yeah, also some of the players that we've seen linked already, I know we'll go on to that in a minute. It does make for good reading for Wigan fans. Yeah,
let's talk about some of those players then, Billy. Stephen Colker, the experienced centre-back, announced this morning he should shore things up at the back. I'm going to rattle off a couple of the other names linked, Billy, and I'm just going to come to you, I guess, to pick out one or two that you think might be particularly useful signings. Arsenal's Miguel Aziz is reportedly on his way to the DW Stadium. There's interest, according to Alan Nixon, in Nottingham Forest duo Jack Colback and Harry Toffolo. Burton's Victor Adebayojo has also been linked, and per an Football League World exclusive this morning, Leeds United's young striker Joe Gelhardt, who could be sent out on loan if they manage to draft in a new forward. He's someone that we understand that Wigan Athletic would love to bring back to the club for the second half of the season. Billy, of those few, Aziz, Colback, Toffolo, Adebayojo and Gelhardt, any of the names there that really jump out to you?
I think Wigan fans will be in agreement that Gelhardt would be a brilliant addition back. Of course, he had a very enjoyable stint with Wigan before, and sort of earned his move to Leeds through that. And I think ultimately he's the kind of player that would suit a few different systems. He's somebody that has attacking versatility. He can operate in a number of different roles. So I think that will be ideal. I think he's unfortunate to not be playing regular games with Leeds. I think he's shown when he has been given the opportunity that he can cut it. He's somebody with a very, very exciting future. And I think that the connection with Wigan could help steer this one in the Latics' favour. Of course, somebody that he sort of generated a good partnership with Asgard before, and I think those two could be crucial again. I like Stephen Corker coming in. I think that's. I think I'm shocked that he's still only just 31 years of age. I thought he'd been around for a lot longer than that. But yeah, he's at a good age. He's a leader, defensively and aerially. There's no problems whatsoever. Also sort of progressive on the ball as well. So I think he ticks a lot of boxes. And you mentioned there about the defensive record. And I think looking individually, I don't think, the likes of Watmore and Tilt are good defenders, but I think having someone like Corker coming in should help shore up that defence. Harry Toffolo as well. I think that'd be excellent business for the majority of Championship clubs. I think Toffolo was probably the division's best left wing back last time out. Scored goals, got assists, but he was also, tasked against some of the division's best wingers and continually and pretty much always came out on top. So I think that would be a phenomenal bit of business. Colback as well, I think would be good. Aziz as well. So sort of all the names that have been mentioned there, they would all represent good business from Wigan. And I think they've got every right to be excited about this window. The rumours and sort of the amount of rumours suggest they're going to be active. But yeah, I think the only potential issue is the fact that they could add too many and disrupt that sort of flow within the team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Daniel Dixon's been in the comments sort of agreeing with you. He's saying hopefully the Stephen Corker signing is the start of things to come and a turnaround in our season. A reminder to any of the fans watching, please do get involved in the comments. Let us know, how you feel that things are going under Kolo Toure at the moment. How you feel like the January window's going and who you'd like to see brought in. Well, Billy, we've talked about. I certainly have focused on a fair bit of the bad news for Wigan this season, but let's look at some of the good news. They might be cut adrift at the bottom of the Championship, but they are just 3 points from safety. It's a really tight division this year, Billy. As I said, just 3 points away from safety. How much is that sort of a good news story for Wigan? Looks like we might have lost Billy here. Billy? Billy, hear me now, mate?
Hello, yeah. Sorry, that's just cut out there. So, yeah.
No worries. I was just saying, Billy. I certainly, you've been fairly positive, but I certainly have focused on a lot of the negatives. Looking at the positives, obviously, Wigan bottom of the Championship, but only 3 points away, away from safety at the moment. It's a tight group down there. And do you think it's fair to say that anyone from sort of Birmingham City down at the moment, so that's Stoke City, Bristol City, Cardiff City, Rotherham United, Blackpool, Huddersfield Town and Wigan, any of those sides we can really consider sort of in this relegation mix? And in that sense, Wigan only need to sort of better 3 of those sides to really give them to stay up, really.
Yeah, I think that has to be a positive. I think what we've seen in recent Championship seasons, there's at least, 1 or 2 teams that get cut adrift. They might put up a fight near the end of the season, but at this stage, it's never as close and competitive as it is at the moment. So I think that's definitely a positive for Wigan. The fact they're not too many points off Birmingham, I think that's got to be classed as sort of a moment of opportunity rather than to be looked upon negatively in any way. You still look at Birmingham and even above them with Hull, still with as many games left in the Championship and with the division looking as tight as it has done during this season, you couldn't really write off anybody. Or you couldn't even say that teams in 14th or 15th have avoided the drop. It's that close, and I think that's the real point of opportunity for Wigan this season, is that bar Burnley and Sheffield United at the top end of the division, you couldn't really predict much else in the division. So that's the that's where I think Wigan fans will be hopeful. Of course, they've got the January transfer window that's shaping up to be a positive one for them. I think also the fact that, you know, the relationship between Wigan hierarchy and the fans is still, you know, compared to other Championship clubs, is still at a good level. I think that definitely helps. I think having things moving in a positive direction on that front is massive. So I think, in my eyes, things are looking more positive than negative. They might be sitting at the foot of the Championship table, but of course, a change of management, a real disrupted season with the World Cup coming in. I think there's a lot of reasons as to why things have happened the way they have. But I think coming into sort of the crunch end of the season, where you know, 2 wins can really boost and change the objectives of a season. So I think that's definitely something where Wigan will be optimistic about. It's a real exciting time for them, this January transfer window, and by the sort of rumoured arrivals, I think that's another reason to be optimistic and excited about what remains.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, those sort of, it's so tight down there that 2 wins in a row, given the struggles of a lot of the teams around them, can sort of catapult them, you know, fairly high up the table at this point. Obviously, as we've talked about, the January window going to be so important when you bring in a sort of a manager like Toure, in the sense that he's a sort of high-profile name. He's always going to lead on sort of his contact book, and you're always going to hope that will bring players in. So perhaps we won't really discover who Kolo Toure'S Wigan are until sort of February or March. But we look at the games coming up. You know, in the next 5 weeks, they've got games against Cardiff, Huddersfield, and Bristol City. Games against West Brom, Blackburn, and obviously that replay against Luton in there as well. But those 3 teams, you know, being in and around them, do you think those games represent real opportunity for Toure's side to get, you know, 6 points, 7 points, 9 points, whatever it is, and, you know, really build some momentum and knock some points off the teams around them as well?
Yeah, I think it's a massive period of games. You start with that Cardiff one, and after this Luton draw, after, you know, the performance they put in, something to build upon, and it's one of the fixtures that you'd probably wish for, given the way things are panning out at Cardiff at the moment. I think that's a very, very good opportunity for Wigan to get back onto that sort of winning run. Of course, you know, that they've got Luton in the league and Luton in the cup. So again, that's another opportunity. That they've played very, very well against Luton twice this season. I think that's a very good opportunity for them to take confidence, especially if they can secure a positive result against Cardiff. They'll bring a lot of confidence into both those fixtures. And then, yeah, looking on to Blackburn, you never know what Blackburn are going to turn up. The fact that, you know, that they've lost more games than the majority of teams in the division, I guess acts as again, a moment of opportunity, and then going on to Huddersfield and Bristol City, sort of in the latter stages of that run, two teams as well that haven't really performed as we know that they can do as well this season. So I think it's a real good opportunity for Wigan and Kolo Toure to start winning football matches. I think it's also quite telling, say, if they don't get through that period without any wins, if their sort of run continues, then I think that's when we start to potentially class them as being destined for the drop. But ultimately, they've got a real good opportunity here to put some points on the board, you know, build something under Kolo Toure and see where the rest of the season can take them.
Absolutely. You hinted at your stance then, but it seems like you're sort of in a similar position to a lot of the Wigan fans that we've had sort of commenting. Anthony Marcroft has said, was worried after the run of results, but after the Wigan game and the rumours on signings, I'm more than hopeful that we will stay up. This, Billy, of course, was the debate show, and we were debating whether Kolo Toure's Wigan Athletic are destined for the drop. As you say, we're going to find out a lot more about this team than we have already, probably in the next 6 weeks, and it might be, you know, it might change the way it looks fairly significantly with the January window. But what's your stance at the moment? Do you feel like the Latics are destined for the drop?
No, I don't think they're destined for the drop. I think, of course, sitting at the bottom of the league at this point, they're in the conversation. They have to be in the conversation. But ultimately, I think there's a lot of potential for this season to end on the right note. As shown in that comment there, there's potential signings. There's that performance against Luton, which will certainly give them a lot of confidence. And I guess Kolo Toure's still settling in. So I think, there's definitely opportunities for them to come through this period in a much, much better situation than when they entered it. I think that mentioned before, that Luton performance and subsequent result, I think that's going to be massive for confidence levels going into this Cardiff game, and then for this the rest of this 5-week period. So I think my stance is that they have to be in the conversation, and certainly they are, but they're not destined for the drop, I don't think.
Well, there you have it, Wigan fans. Certainly a fair bit of positivity from Football League World TV that there might, though it's been a bleak start to Kolo Toure's tenure, that there might be some good times ahead. Well, that is everything from myself and Billy today. But at 4 p.m, Sam Rourke will be your host for the EFL Transfer Zone show. All the latest and biggest transfer news from across the EFL will be wrapped up there. So certainly not one to miss. That just leaves me to say thanks, Billy, and thanks everyone for watching.